and I was in a season of yes. And so I said, yes, yeah, I would love to do this. Not sure what I was saying yes to. And then probably about 2 weeks later, my grandmother called us. We were on vacation and she was experiencing some chest tightness, a little bit hard to breathe, shortness of breath, and said, I'm just going to take a nap and see how I feel. And my sister and I, who are very bold, said, hey, if
Mhm.
you don't go to the emergency room, and when we call you back, if you're not there, we are going to come off on vacation and take you ourselves.
So,
And
welcome
so,
to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with my very special guest and return guest, Tiffany Bates. So, Tiffany is supervisor, well, day center supervisor with WellBe
yep.
Health.
Mhm.
And here's the other part of it that I freaking love. It's 209 American Heart Association, Woman of Impact nominee. And I mean, there's a lot of women, I'm sure, in 209, and for you to get, and what, 12 or 13 of you that got nominated?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So
It's
I
a
know
huge
you have,
honor.
oh, I bet. So, and
Mhm.
I love the story that you were telling me before I hit record, but
Mhm.
we'll say it again. You
Yeah.
have a quote though to kick us off with, and then we'll kind of unpack why you're here.
I did. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me. My quote I have today is from Maya Angelou, and she says, I'm interested in women's health because I'm a woman, and I'd be a darn fool not to be on my own side. So that resonated with me because, yeah, we should be advocating for our own health, for the women that we love, and doing what we can to make that a priority for everyone.
What I love is that
Mhm.
second part, I'd be a darn fool not to be.
Yeah.
Because I think that fits in a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
what struck me with what you were talking about, there were a couple things, right?
Mhm.
You've reached out because you're doing a walk and supporting stuff for American Heart Association. I think the walk
Mhm.
is, correct me if I'm wrong, April 10th.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things we want to do is call attention to that. The other
Mhm.
part of it was you were talking about your grandmother, and there's a deeper
Mhm.
connection to heart health that you weren't even
Yes.
aware of around
Mhm.
that. And I would love you to say something about that and then how you got involved,
Mhm.
because I have a perspective on that stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually was asked by an old colleague of mine who works at Sutter, and I was in a season of yes. And so I said, yes, yeah, I would love to do this. Not sure what I was saying yes to. And then probably about 2 weeks later, my grandmother called us. We were on vacation and she was experiencing some chest tightness, a little bit hard to breathe, shortness of breath, and said, I'm just going to take a nap and see how I feel. And my sister and I, who are very bold, said, hey, if
Hmm.
you don't go to the emergency room, and when we call you back, if you're not there, we are going to come off of vacation and take you ourselves. And so my grandma, who's going to do things not just for herself, but she doesn't want to be a burden, that was enough to get her up and get her out and go to the emergency room. And she was actually in the hospital for about 4 or 5 days. Found
Wow.
out that she had about 60 cc's of fluid built up in her lungs. And she had a heart condition called afibrillation,
Hmm.
which is not a severe heart condition, but it is a heart condition. And so she never had that before, and had to start a course of medication and taking her heart health serious. So learning what her cardiologist told her, the nurses told her, and being there during those very scary times in the
Hmm.
hospital. And I remember her looking over to me and saying, I don't want to go, and I didn't think it was that serious, but she felt it was that serious, that chest
Hmm.
tightness, that unable to breathe fully. Hearing the beeps at the hospital, that was enough to cause anxiety.
Hmm.
And so, she just said, hey, I just want to be here. And I don't want to go. And so we made a vow to keep each other healthy, try to
Hmm.
do what the doctors tell us to do. And we
Hmm.
went on this journey together. And so it hit me in that hospital room. Hey, I'm tied to AHA now, and I want to do the right thing. So now I have a why.
Hmm.
That's not just my grandmother, but it's myself, my daughter, my sister, my mother. and all the other women that's tied to me. So divine timing, I think, when I said yes to something that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know impacted me, but now forever will be a part of my journey and my story.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, when I chatted with you, it brought me back. So my dad had heart stuff. He's
Mm,
passed since, but not from heart stuff. He ended
mm,
up, he was in his early 40s. Now he played racquetball 3 days a week. He didn't drink.
wow.
The only thing he really drank was iced tea and
Mm,
without any sugar or anything in it, right? Not that
wow.
that's going to contribute to anything.
Hmm.
But he ended up, his personality was such, type A personality, that he was shortness of breath. I mean, he'd get
Yeah.
tired really easily. And
Hmm.
so, very active guy. And he was
Yeah.
42, I think, at the time,
Wow.
super young,
That
right?
is young.
But what happened was he was in the Air Force. They ended up, by the time they diagnosed and figured out what's going on, because they're not looking for heart issues for a 42-year-old
Hmm.
guy who, active and everything
Right.
else.
Hmm.
He had blockages in the main arteries leading to his heart. So
Wow.
this was back 70s, in the 70s. So
Hmm.
then they didn't have the technology and the advancements that we have today, because a lot of times now they'll put stents in.
Hmm.
They did bypass surgery and took the arteries out of his legs,
Wow.
replaced the arteries, did all that stuff, rerouted stuff.
Hmm.
9 years later, because he didn't change behaviors, and we talk about
Hmm.
the behaviors of how we do, he
Hmm.
still ate healthy and all the stuff, right? They had him on a low sodium diet for something,
Hmm.
for hard stuff, even though he didn't have high blood pressure. It's
Hmm.
interesting what happened back then and what we know now. But
Right.
because he still was high stress, and when we
Hmm.
talk about leadership and leading ourselves, one of the main things that I come across with clients is they'll go into this fight or flight survivor brain. So
Hmm.
when cortisol floods your system, all the stuff, we
Yeah.
have control over managing this stuff. If and when we
Yes.
just learn that we did. Of course, I didn't do what I do now when my dad was alive,
Hmm.
but he was still the same type A personality. So 9 years later, blockages again. He
Hmm.
didn't suffer a heart attack, but
Hmm.
had to go back in. Then they made more advancements, still no stents, and
Hmm.
they routed, I think they're called the mammary arteries, the larger ones in the chest to be able to
Hmm.
flow. That
Mm.
carried him until he ended up passing when he was in his 70s.
Wow.
But I say that because we don't know. You can have all the, I'm healthy, I work out, I do the stuff.
Hmm.
To your point, it's important that we check out those other indicators. So if we do have
That's so
symptoms
good.
that I'm kind of tired, I'm whatever, don't
Hmm.
chalk it up to, oh, I guess this is just how it is.
Right.
Or like
Right.
your grandmother, take the initiative, be the
Hmm.
leader of your own life, see what's going
Exactly.
on.
Right, right. Yeah, and something that speaks out to me through this journey of being a woman of impact, our campaign directors actually sent us a lot of education. And so I love that my campaign manager's name is Casey. Sends us a video every other day about heart health. And really, he's teaching it to me as we're going. And so then I go down this bunny trail of, oh, what about this? What about this? And something that speaks out to me is that 1 in every 5 women or female deaths are because of cardiovascular disease. And then going down the line of that, women traditionally hold a lot of the responsibility in the household.
Mhm.
Maybe they handle stress differently. And so just wanting to figure out for myself, for my family, for my daughter, how do I hold myself accountable to that mental health piece, right? Listening
Mhm.
to my body when I'm tired, really not taking on more than I can take, and
Mhm.
knowing what my limit is. Like I told you, last year was my year of yes, but it was
Mhm.
also a year of a lot of no's, right? Like what can I say yes to and what I can't say yes to,
Mhm.
and really listening to what makes me feel good, but
Yeah.
ultimately, do I have the time for? And
Mhm.
so, women, we need to start looking at eating better, exercising, right? Something I kept started this year, exercising more. But to your point, it's more than that. It's
Yeah.
taking on more than you can take. Communicating to your family when you can or can't do something is
Mhm.
very important. My campaign manager sent me this video about heart health in women, and
Mm.
another video was connected to it was a video about a mom getting ready for the day. Many of
Mm.
us, all of us moms can relate. You're like an octopus, cooking breakfast, doing hair, getting backpacks ready, checking
All the
homework,
stuff.
all the things. And, this woman this whole time is having multiple signs of heart attack,
Oh.
right? She's having fatigue. She's sweating. You can see it in her armpits. She's short of breath. She's making her husband his favorite breakfast. And this whole time she's having a heart attack.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until her, I think, 11-year-old son was like, Mom, you're having all the symptoms. You need to call someone. And off they go to
Hmm.
school.
Yeah.
And I asked myself after watching that video, I'm like, wow, how many times have I gone and ignored a symptom,
Hmm.
right? Very similar, and just went back and gone to work. And so,
Hmm.
really being honest with myself to say, okay, if I have that happen again, I'm going to make a different decision.
Hmm.
And then sharing that with my community is biggest thing for me, because if they can relate, if I can relate, I'm sure they can too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back because
Mm-hmm.
you're familiar with process improvement
Mm-hmm.
and your sister is. I'm going to go back
Mm-hmm.
to root cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
part of it is you can have diet implications, you can have all the other stuff. The thing that stands
Mm-hmm.
out for me is stress management.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can do
Yes.
everything else. And if you don't manage that level of stress and how you
Mm-hmm.
navigate through stuff, that's
Right.
one of the more critical things. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that we can do in the moment, right, when we start to feel that overwhelming stuff, is
Right.
pause and ask ourselves, what are we telling ourselves right now, right? Because part of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff we say is everything that's in front of us has to be done now, has
And
to
by
be
me.
done today. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
by me.
Right.
So the other thing that I encourage people to do when they're starting to feel that is to remind
Mm-hmm.
yourself there's plenty of time to get everything done that needs to be done.
Mm.
There's plenty
Yeah.
of time to get everything done that needs to be done. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot in that, Tiffany. And part of it
Mm-hmm.
is we're lying to ourselves when we tell ourselves that all this stuff has to be done because
Right.
all of it doesn't have to be done right now.
That's so good.
So I
Yeah.
think that's part of being honest with ourselves. The other part
Mm-hmm.
of it is, to your point, is to check in and go, how am I feeling right now? Right? What's
Mm-hmm.
really happening? And
Mm-hmm.
if it is stress and wound up, there's different things you can do. Box breathing,
Yeah.
right? I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for box breathing, I know you have, for anybody who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know, and there's different counts that you can do, but I'm going to give you the count that I'm more familiar with. You're going to inhale to the count of five, okay? You're going to hold for the count of five. You're going to exhale to the count of five, and you're going to hold for the count of five. And you're going to do that for 4 to 5 cycles. And what
Mm-hmm.
that will do is it brings you down. It brings all
Mm-hmm.
your focus back in on what you're doing. Because what happens when we're all in this worked up stage, we've scattered our energy and our focus everywhere. So the
Yeah,
box
that's true.
breathing will help us pull it back in and ground
Mm-hmm.
and center ourselves. And then
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself what needs to be done right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
guarantee you it's not everything on that list.
Right. Right. And the other thing too that our one of for my company, my president actually opens our all hands with box breathing or mindfulness.
Yes.
And something that he says is bring yourself to right now.
Hmm.
And just like what you said, does this need to happen right now? The other question that I ask myself when I take a moment is, who else can I tap in to help me? Whether
Hmm.
that's my spouse, my manager, my one up from my manager, or maybe I can just ask for extra time, right?
Hmm.
We want to try to hit all of our deadlines. That's important, but there's some deadlines that are movable, right? And
Hmm.
so just being honest with yourself and then the people that you're responsible for or that are
Yeah.
responsible for your success and saying, hey, this is what I have. Can you help me with this?
Hmm.
And so, really leaning into that is one way that you can um, one way I have been trying to help myself with not only my heart health, but my
Hmm.
overall health and just being
Yeah.
honest, and I've found that people are more likely to help me than I would have imagined.
Hmm.
And in fact, I've actually gotten responses before too, like, actually, that's actually not due today. I can move that back a week.
Hmm.
And what a relief that, that
Hmm.
gives me. So, yeah, so I totally agree with that. Take a moment, center yourself.
Hmm.
That box breathing is a great way to just put you into the now so you
Hmm.
can prioritize and think about, okay, I've got 2 hours until I leave. what can I get done today? And
Hmm.
who do I need to communicate with about the stuff maybe that maybe can't get done today?
Well, and I think the
That's
other
it.
part of it is because when you were talking, it
Mm-hmm.
dawned on me with this, we're on a Friday, it's 2 hours before I'm going to leave for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Are we messaging that the stuff that we're not getting done, that we failed at delivering something?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we messaging to ourselves of, okay, I got celebrating the stuff that we
Mm-hmm.
got done. To your point,
Yes.
checking in and going, okay, this really doesn't have to be done this week. It can be done
Yeah.
next week. And the other option too is if we've got this underlying assumption, right, that we've established what this deadline is for something, check with whoever assigned it to your point.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you've got a one up and you've got all these things on your plate, they're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily aware of all the stuff on your plate. And we assume they
Right.
know. Okay.
Right. Yes, they
Go
must
to
know.
them and go as they're handing you another thing to say, hey, this is what's on my plate already. What
Mm-hmm.
should I stop doing to be able to do this new thing? Because we
Mm-hmm.
know when we're at max.
Right.
And a lot
That's
of
true.
times, what happens is the person that's assigning it to you is not aware of everything on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard plenty of times to where leaders have gone, oh, no, you know what? Keep doing what you're doing. This thing that I'm going to give
Yes.
you, that can hold.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
it's don't make the assumption that you have to take everything that's coming your way and that
Mm,
people that are handing it to you know what you're already doing because they don't.
right. Yeah, they really don't. And I've been in work environments where I've kind of tipped my toe in asking for help. But you really do need to commit, right?
Hmm.
You don't do a soft lob. Would you be able to? No. I love what you said about laying it out. And then, if you lay it out and leave it on the table and say, hey, I only have time to do two of these things. Can you
Hmm.
help me prioritize? Or how would you prioritize these things? And then let that be a conversation versus just trying to drill it out and get it done. And
Hmm.
then at the sacrifice of what, right? Your
Yeah.
time, your energy, your mental health, your lack of sleep, all of those things are not worth it if you have an alternative choice,
Yeah.
which
Well,
is
and
speaking up.
then I mean, for me, I go back to my desire for every human on this planet is
Hmm.
that we live every moment happy. And I know
Hmm.
people are like, what? But it's you're going to have times that's funky and it's
Hmm.
stressful, but that
Yeah.
can't be your normal baseline.
Hmm.
So it's like,
It can.
what is it to walk through and live differently to where you're showing up differently? And what happens is you show up as the best version of you when you're
Mm-hmm.
not stressed.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
when we flood our system with cortisol, we actually shut down the creative learning centers of our brain. The only thing we're
Right.
capable of is running from the hungry tiger that, by the way, is probably not sitting next to us.
Right. Yeah.
So we're a better version of ourselves in leading stuff when we don't
Yeah.
have the illusion of the hungry tiger and that our
Right.
body's responding that way.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like
100%.
check in. How am I
Mm-hmm.
feeling? What do I need to let go of?
Right. Yeah. Something that comes to mind too is I'm also a better leader when my team does that, right? If
Hmm.
they're able to be transparent with me, I'm actually fresh off of a one-on-one about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
And in my one-on-one, I talked about transparency and how that helps me as their supervisor be able to really focus on what's important to them versus what I think is important.
Hmm.
But when you're transparent, your leader can then activate skill set, problem solving with you, or even just giving support, right?
Hmm.
Offloading something to your supervisor feels like a fresh breath of fresh air, but
Hmm.
it also builds trust.
Hmm.
And so, when someone says, and I used to be like this, Michelle, so I'm speaking to the choir, I can get it done. I'm going to prove to her I can do it all.
Yeah.
Um, but what I actually proved is I stay later, robbed
Hmm.
myself of my personal time, couldn't sleep the night before, potentially didn't execute or invite people to help me.
Hmm.
So I robbed myself of collaboration
Hmm.
for what? All the credit for a project that was probably not as great as it could have been.
Yeah.
And so just being real with myself and saying, okay, how do I make sure that I have the best experience? Because work should be a good experience, like you said.
Hmm.
We should be happy, we should be evolving and growing, but also we should be open for feedback and collaboration. but you have to communicate and be transparent to get that. So
Mhm.
I love that. I love that that was brought up.
Well, and I have to wonder, right, when you're in that space of I'm going to do it all, I'm going to be, that we get cynical after a
Mm-hmm.
while and we get
Yes.
kind of like hardened if we're not getting the recognition that we think we deserve because we're putting in all this
Yeah.
extra stuff.
Right. Oh yeah. Yes, I believe that. I remember I think it was my sister telling me your discretionary time is what you choose to do with it,
Yeah.
but you're not going to get paid for your discretionary choices,
Yeah.
right? Especially if nobody, it's like when I'm helping my son with his homework and he gets the answer. I'm not as proud about the answer being correct as if I see the work and I'm like, wow, you really know how to do this math, right?
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. But if you just get the answer, and I've gone to accounting math and finance math, those equations can take 2 3 pages of paper. You feel proud to see and show your work, right,
Yeah.
versus just getting the answer. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree.
So I have a question for you around all this stuff because the
Mhm.
conversation started around American Heart Association and
Mhm.
promoting that and
Mhm.
the impact that it has on our lives.
Mhm.
Um, Through this journey, because like you said, you didn't know what you signed up for. You know, you're doing stuff that you didn't plan on doing.
Right.
But I have a couple questions. Number one
Mhm.
is, what is something that you look back from when you first started and these ahas that you've gone through that you're
Mm.
doing differently now than what you were before? So that's the first one.
Mm. I think what I'm doing differently is letting someone else lead in areas that I'm not strong in,
Mm,
right? And that person could be my campaign manager, director with the AHA. That could be like my marketing director that I work with, asking her for ideas. I'm literally a fish out of water with this.
yeah.
And so having to literally, I'm like, what do I do?
Or a sponge absorbing everything. Okay, which is different.
Exactly.
A fish out of water can die.
Yes, that's true. I'm not
A
dying.
sponge can
I'm
absorb
absorbing.
everything.
Yeah, that's no, I love it. You're so good with that because yeah, words mean things. And so yeah, I'm a sponge. And so really absorbing like, okay, and this is now adding to my skill set, right? And I'm having fun, even though when I set my mind, I'm like, I think I can raise 5,000. But as we go along, I think we have less than a month left. I
Yeah,
know I can raise more.
yeah,
And I'm excited to, overdo my goal. But even if I don't, I am learning so much. I'm making connections. I'm really being intentional with the time that I'm spending on my campaign. I also learned too that there are more people who have um, the capacity in their heart to give,
mm,
even if it's not money, it's their
yeah,
time. It's their, you
yeah,
can do it. I'm so proud of you. And so I'm just really grateful for even just that, right?
yeah,
Because that makes me feel good. Even what you said before when we started that there's many women in the 209 and you're one of the, two handfuls of people that were nominated. I'm like,
yeah,
I never even consider it that way.
yeah,
I'm already proud, but I'm, on top of that, now I'm honored. Now I know that this will be with my story forever.
yeah,
And so I just have a sense of huge gratitude.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and it's so funny. It's so funny, not haha, but you say that.
Mm,
And I have to remind myself, like when I was going through jobs when I was at Sutter Health or other external roles, in fact, the role that I do now, and with leadership development and executive coaching and all the stuff, is how many people are in the world
mm,
that get to do what I do?
mm,
How many people in the world, seriously, get to do what
mhm.
you do?
Right, right.
And I think that flip and that reframing
Hmm.
can shift us from this potential pity party that we could be in at some time because not
Hmm.
every day is sunshine and roses and unicorns, right?
Right, yeah.
But it can flip us from that space of pity party to gratitude to go, you know what?
Hmm.
I chose this.
Hmm.
And I mean, who else gets to do what I do?
Right,
It's
right.
not everyone. Who else
No,
gets nominated to do and recognize what you're doing? I mean, there's
right.
tons of people out there
Yeah.
working, doing what you're doing, and they
Hmm.
didn't get selected. So it's just, I think it steps us into this gratitude. And when we're in gratitude space, our vibration increases and we get rid
Hmm.
of all the other negative stuff.
Right.
And that's where
Right.
we're healthier. We're thinking
Yeah.
better. We're more productive. We're all the
Mhm.
stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I get more creative. Tomorrow I have a walk with a couple of people that I've connected with in the community, just to raise money, but also the initiation of that was just building a community of
Yeah.
women who want to focus on getting more active, taking a moment to themselves or bringing their kids,
Hmm.
and really having that time, 1 hour to walk and talk and network. And even if I don't raise any money at this, I'm already super excited to put on my calendar something for me,
Yeah.
something that I love doing, and something that I hope to continue even after the campaign is done.
You're raising awareness, if nothing
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
Okay. You're raising awareness. So here's my other
Hmm.
question for you.
Hmm.
Because you mentioned your job, your word for last year was yes, or in the
Hmm.
year of yeah. What is it this year? What's your word?
I've been actually posting it a lot this year because I was deep in prayer before the end of the year. And it is gratitude, but it's more specific, giving a little to give a lot, giving a little to get a lot. And
Okay.
the get is not tangible things, right?
Right.
Donating food and money and my son's old clothing to my family in the
I saw that.
Philippines.
I did see that
Yeah.
post. Yeah, I thought
And
that was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And the much that I get is that warm feeling that, I gave something and
Mhm.
what else can I give? Like we went around the house, my son and I, what else can we give? They're leaving
It
tomorrow.
feels so good.
Yeah. It feels amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't really, when I give, even if it's something, like less thoughtful, like
Hmm.
money, I really just want to get out of that feeling of did I meet a need?
Yeah.
And so that is my slogan for this year.
Yeah.
And it it has opened me up to see where else I can fit a need and to identify a need. It may not be me, right? It may
Yeah.
not be something I can do, but being aware for where there's a need. And if I can point
Yeah.
a resource or point someone out to somebody or connect someone, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
My
Yeah.
word of this year is playful.
How
Completely
is that manifested?
diversion. It's been interesting, and it was so funny
Mm,
because I was listening to it's Oliver, I think Nuno. He's a
mm-hmm,
energy healer.
mm-hmm,
And he did this webinar thing, and then he had someone that he goes to that's like an intuitive reader. And so
mm-hmm,
she did this thing for everyone. So it was a recorded thing. It was the funniest freaking thing. So she had these four candles, right? That you
mm-hmm,
it numbered 1 through 4. And then
mm.
I'm watching this along with thousands of other people. And it's
Wow.
like, pick your number. And so 3 came to mind for me. I'm like, okay. So then she did 4 readings, and I'm listening
Mm-hmm.
to number 3. And this card came up, and it was playfulness. I'm like,
Wow.
okay then.
That's it.
So, but it was funny because I have people around me when I get serious or focused, remember your word. And so for
Mm,
me, it's that reminder of, even though it's like I've got one business venture around AI consulting, that that our core one part of our core values is to have fun. Well,
mm,
you can't always have fun when things aren't working as you intend them to work
mm.
initially, until you remind yourself
Right.
this is probably not going to matter 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's that reminder for me, as I
Mm-hmm.
get serious and intense and remind
Right.
myself there's plenty of time to get everything done that needs to be done.
Right.
Um, it's one of those other focuses, completely different from anything else I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But someone early on this year said that word to me because we were talking about
Mm,
words for the year, and I'm like, that's my word. That's
mm-hmm.
that's my word.
Yeah. I love that because I know you're really big on like words and mindset.
I
When
am
you
big
think
on
of
words.
playfulness, yeah, I think it brings the joy back. Something
Hmm.
we're talking about, like, yeah, man, oh, the kids have to go to school, they have to do this. And then the way that responds to your body is stress.
Yeah,
But if you're like, make it a fun thing, like you get to do this, like, oh
exactly.
my gosh, I remember when I was in middle school and I can't wait to, and you connect it to playfulness or joy,
Hmm.
that changes that response in your body.
Mhm.
So I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it moves you forward.
Mhm.
Thank you for this time. So my
Thank you.
final question to you is around this whole topic is what are one or two things you want people to walk away with?
Yes, I want to have people walk away with finding out one or two things that you're committing to yourself, whether that's that box breathing we talked about, changing your diet even slightly, walking more, exercising more, listening to your body. I do a check in every night with myself before I pray, before I go to bed. Like, how's my body feeling? Am
Yeah.
I going to bed at the right time tonight? What does my body need? And so, finding two or three things you can do to change your mindset and also a way that you can check in with yourself.
Hmm.
The other thing I like people to take away with this is saying yes to something doesn't always make sense in the moment.
Hmm.
But I feel like there's divine timing for everything. And so maybe, just maybe, my divine timing for being a woman of impact maybe connects me right now to my mom, but I truly
Yeah.
believe that it made me awake, the parts of myself that maybe were not aware about my
Hmm.
own health, about my
Hmm.
own kids' health or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think everything happens for a reason.
Hmm.
And so the reason could be my grandma, yes, but it also is me as well. And so
Hmm.
really just being thankful for that opportunity, for that wake up call.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to give a little to get a lot, right?
Yeah.
Think about one small way. I remember when I was making like maybe $10 an hour. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, oh, if only I can make 60,000, I can donate all this money to people. But
I'll be
it
rich.
doesn't, I'll be rich, but it doesn't take you to make a lot of money to give, right?
Oh.
So look at your home, look at your time, look at maybe the words that you speak to people. It doesn't have to be monetarily, but
Yeah.
I feel like we all have something to give, whether it's a compliment, a listening ear,
Mhm.
but know that there's a limit to that, right? You cannot give of yourself too much where now you're empty. So
Mhm.
again, that goes back to that self check. So I think those are
Yeah.
three things I want people to go away
Yeah.
with.
Thank you. Yeah. Some of the stuff that comes to mind is you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. It's so true.
The hourly rate that I made with my first job was
Hmm.
$2.35 an hour.
Wow.
So at the time, gas was 49 cents a gallon when I was driving.
Wow.
So I had a little Volkswagen Bug, VW Bug,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I would put gas in my car from the change in the ashtray.
Yeah,
That I would
I've
can't
been there.
I cannot do that today. I don't even know if my
No.
car has an ashtray. Yeah. Um, but back in the day they had ashtrays. So yeah,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with all that stuff. The other thing I'll say is if you find yourself saying things like, I think I'm okay,
Mm.
please, please get clarity on that.
Absolutely.
Because whether, and it's just overall health. There
Hmm.
was a friend of mine that her husband had a stroke. He was in his 40s at the time. Uh,
Mm.
and I get the phone call and I go to the emergency room because it was my best friend.
Mm.
And I'm talking to her, and their docs are there, and trauma team and all the stuff. And
Hmm.
his blood pressure was just out of control. And
Wow.
she goes, "But he's healthy." I
Mm.
said, "Okay, so the last doctor visit, everything was okay." And she goes, "Oh, he doesn't go to the doctor."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I say that because if you
Hmm.
if you find yourself saying, "I think so, I believe so, I'm pretty sure," please find out for certain, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the other part that I would add is if you can't
Yeah.
say with certainty, go find out with certainty.
Right. Yes. I would
So
agree with that. Do your health screenings, right? They're not just to get money from your
yeah,
insurance company.
yeah.
They are there to be preventive,
Mm-hmm.
and also to keep you aware. And going to the doctor can be scary. You and I have worked in healthcare. We see people in the lobby with that look on their face.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, I've seen people have small symptoms, put it off, and it was gas. or
Mm-hmm.
something small or something big. And so you
Or
really
it
want to
was
make
an
sure.
appendicitis. Yes.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yes. And so you just
Yes.
want to check in with people or your doctor to confirm what you feel, like you said,
Yeah.
confirm if you're really okay. So then you can live in that joy and that
Mm-hmm.
happiness and go forth and conquer.
Yep. No, I agree.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you for the time. Thank you for the topic.
Thank
What
you.
I'll do is put the contact info in the description, how people can get a hold of you. So let me know what that is.
Yes.
And if they want to get involved in some way or help contribute, then yeah, we can do that. Have an
Yes.
awesome, awesome day. And this has been Leadership Soundbites. Please like, share, subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you soon.